What are web APIs? The ASP.NET Web API is a framework for creating HTTP-based services that can be used in a variety of applications on a variety of platforms such as web, games, Windows, and mobile. On the .NET framework, ASP.NET Web API is an excellent foundation for developing RESTful apps. Some of the examples of Web API are Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph is a collection of APIs that gives us information back out of our Microsoft account. Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps, we can get information about DevOps pipeline using the Azure DevOps API. Cognitive services. We can use cognitive services if we are interested in adding machine learning. PlayFab. PlayFab is a set of APIs for games. Features of Web APIs. The ASP.NET Web API platform is suitable for creating RESTful services. The ASP.NET Web API is based on ASP.NET and uses ASP.NET Request Response Pipeline. HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol verbs are mapped to method names in the ASP.NET Web API. Web API can be hosted on IIS or any other web server that supports .NET version 4.0 and more. ASP.NET Web API supports different data types like .json, XML, and many other formats that are supported natively. To interface with Web API Server, the ASP.NET Web API framework contains a new HTTP client. HTTP client can be used in ASP.NET and MVC server-side applications. Now let us look at the demo. In this demo, we will create a Web API project. First, let's go to Visual Studio. Launch the Visual Studio. Create a new project. Scroll down and search for ASP.NET Core Web API. This project template is used for creating an ASP.NET Core application with an example controller for a RESTful HTTP service. So select this template and click on Next. Provide the project name. Since we are showing a demo, I'll name it as Demo Web API. Click on Next and click on Create. So here you can see the project is successfully created. On the right hand side, if you can see, we have startup and program.cs file. If you notice here in controllers, we have weather forecast controller.cs. Open this. In this, we have a single get method. This method receives request for weather data and returns some response. If you also notice here, we have weather forecast.cs. Open this. In this, we have the class weather forecast. The function of this class is to form the structure of information that we want to return from our API. So let's go ahead and run this. Click on this green arrow mark and run. The build has started. It's running on the local host. This is the output. It shows the date and the temperature in Celsius and the temperature in Fahrenheit and the summary.
So in this video, we are going to create a login application which has a username, password and a login button. So before we begin, make sure you have subscribed to our YouTube channel and clicked on the bell icon so you never miss an update from Simplilearn. Watch the video till the end so that you don't miss on the demo. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So let's go to Visual Studio. After opening Visual Studio, on the left hand side you have all the recent applications which you have opened, and on the right hand side you have the options to clone a repository, which means you can get a code from an online repository like GitHub or Azure DevOps, or you can open an existing project or a solution, or you can open a local folder or create a new project. So we'll create a new project. Once you create a new project, here you can select the template. So we'll search for the ASP.NET Web Application template. So in the search for template search box, type ASP.NET Web Application. So here you can see we have two ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework templates. The difference between these two is this template uses Visual Basic and this template uses C Sharp. So we will select the template which uses C Sharp. This template is basically used for creating ASP.web application, web forms, MVC or web API applications. So select this template and click on next and provide a suitable project name. Since we are creating a sign-in page, I have entered the project name as sign-in project. Similarly, if you want to change the location, you can change the location and provide the solution name and select the framework version which you want. So I'll keep the default framework. The latest one in my system is 4.7.2. So click on create. So here we need to select a template, whether we want empty, web forms, MVC, web API or single page application. Empty, it is basically a template which does not have any content in it. And web form is a template for creating web form applications. It is used to build dynamic websites using the familiar drag and drop functionality. It has the event driven model. Similarly, if we look at MVC, this template allows to build applications using the model view controller architecture. So model view controller has the features that enable fast test driven development for creating applications that use the latest standard. And we have web API. Web API is used for creating RESTful HTTP services that can reach a broad range of clients including browsers and mobile devices. And we have single page application. This template is basically used to create client-side JavaScript-driven HTML5 application using ASP.NET Web API. So for this project, we will select MVC and we'll not change any authentication and keep all the settings as it is and click on create. So here we go, we have successfully created the project. So if you look at the right hand side in the solution explorer, we have a list of folders. So we have the root folder. This is the root folder. So the default root folder is used for storing the static files related to the project, and those files can be accessed programmatically with the relative path. And we have the controller folder. So this controller folder contains controller classes where the operation related code is written. The model folder contains the domain or entity classes. Models can be written anywhere in the solution, such as in separate class library or folder, etc. Similarly, we have views folder. So the views folder holds the eraser pages which are responsible for showing and getting the data from the user. Similarly, in the folders, we will have an app setting.json file. This folder contains the configuration and secret details of the application, and we will have the program.cs file. The program.cs file is the starting point of the application, which will create the host for an application to run the application. And we will have the startup.cs file. So this startup.cs file allows to configure the behavior of the application, such as defining the routes and dependency injection. So we'll get started with this. So we'll run the application and see the default output. So the build has started. So this is the default output where we have application name, home, home page, about, and contact. So what we'll do is we'll create a login page, that is a sign in page here. So we'll go back to Visual Studio, go to Solution Explorer, right click on the controller folder, add, add a controller, select MVC controller empty and click on add, and name the controller. So we will keep it as default controller and click on add. Next go to models, right click, click on add and add a class. Select the class and click on add. Here you can see a class is created. So what we'll do is we'll rename this class, right click, rename, and we'll rename this as user controller class. Once the class is renamed, go inside this public class and write a code. Type prop and double tap. So the first property will be of the type integer and it will be a number, ID number. Similarly, second property, prop and double tap, will be of the type string, and this will be username. Similarly, third, so after writing this code, go back to the default controller. Here, go to the action result index page, right click and click on add view. And here you can see it contains MVC5 view. Select this and click on add and provide the index name. So I'll keep it as it is and select the template. In the template it has create, delete, details, edit, empty, list, all these templates, but we'll select the create template and select the model class. Select the user controller. This was the model class which we created, user controller. So select user controller and in the options select create as partial view, then click on add. Here you can see this page is created. So we'll run this page and see the output. So here you can see this is the sign in page which we created. We have the number, username and password. So what we'll do, we'll make some changes. We'll change this create button to sign in button and we'll change this user controller. So we'll go back to the Visual Studio and here you can see we have user controller. We'll change it to sign in page. We'll go down and we'll change the create button to sign in button. So we'll save this and click on run. So here you can see this is changed to sign in page and the button is changed to sign in. So you can enter the any value here, new number, and enter the username, password, and click on sign.
What is a web API? The ASP.NET Web API framework is used to create HTTP services that may be accessed by a variety of clients, including browsers, mobile phones, and tablets. ASP.NET Web API is the extension of WCF REST API. In a nutshell, it's a replacement for the WCF REST API. It's compatible with ASP.NET MVC and other web applications, such as ASP.NET Web Forms. ASP.NET Web API is an excellent foundation for developing RESTful apps. So what is this WCF REST API? WCF stands for Windows Communication Foundation, is a communication framework that may be used to create web services in .NET. It is secure, dependable, and scalable. It offers an uniform programming model for service-oriented application development. ASP.NET is quite similar to ASP.NET MVC because of its MVC capabilities like routing, controllers, action results, filters, model binders, IOC container, and dependency injection. ASP.NET Web API is an excellent foundation for developing RESTful apps. RESTful apps, that is, the representational state transfer, is an architecture paradigm that follows the concepts of REST architecture principles. The concept of resources support the REST architecture. The concept of resources that supports the REST architecture may be the use of resources to express an application state and functionality. Over the HTTP protocol, these resources are identified using URLs. Now let us look at the examples of Web API. The first one is Twitter API. Twitter API allows you to show tweets on your website using the Twitter API. Then we have YouTube API. This allows you to embed videos from YouTube on your website. Facebook API allows to display information from Facebook onto the website. Similarly, we have Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph is a collection of APIs that give us information back out of our Microsoft account. Next, we have Azure DevOps. Using Azure DevOps, we can get information about DevOps pipeline using the Azure DevOps API. Cognitive services. We can use cognitive services if we are interested in adding machine learning. PlayFab. PlayFab is a set of APIs for games.